No need for audio sync today. We are actually recording straight into the K3M adapter on a Sony a7 IV, and we actually have it on auto gain. So I just kind of want to test this out. I haven't actually used auto gain yet, so I kind of want to see how it's going to actually monitor my audio, see if it's something I'm going to be using in the future. And we are recording straight to the Rode NTG5, just for those who are curious. But today we're going to be discussing when you need to purchase a cinema camera. And with that being said, we're actually going to talk about the FX3 update as well. Now here's what's funny. The FX3 has been out for quite some time now, right? And for the most part, just like the a7S III, Sony is not really giving these cameras updates. You spend all this bread on it and it's just kind of like giving half-ass updates, just being honest, right? So Sony finally drops an update that's worthy of something that you need to discuss on for their cameras versus the update they gave for the a7S III, which was like seriously. But okay, so here's the thing. I need to go over what I said about the FX3 in this update, just so I can make sure that I'm giving you all accurate information, because that's first and foremost what's important to me. Now here's the thing, for the most part what I'm about to say is it's just me correcting information, but I still kind of feel the same. I still feel the FX3, you know, without it having shutter angle, true 24p, be able to record DCI, no waveforms, so you can actually monitor exposure correctly with the new CineIL. To me, what this update was just a way to give this camera a Netflix certification, like, to be honest. Because to me, honestly, the a7S III can still be a Netflix certified camera. This doesn't have time code. That's the only two differences, because both cameras still shoot log, even though the FX3 got CineIL. It is now introducing ways to monitor exposure with the exposure index. Now, what is dope about this is watching Robert Machado, shout out to Robert Machado, dope cinematographer. But when CineIL, depending on what you're shooting, it's gonna just shoot at the two base ISOs. I mean, it's gonna shoot at the two bases, which is 800 and 12,800, which is funny because it was 640 and 12,800. But okay, if you're shooting the higher index, which is 12,800, you're essentially you're swapping your dynamic range to protect your highlights more. If you're shooting down at the base 800, the base ISO of 800, or the base index of 800, then you are taking information away from your highlights and then putting them back into the shadow. So the way you read the exposure index is to make sure, like, you're just gonna see how your image is gonna look in post, if you either raise it or lower it, so you can kind of get an idea of how you should manually adjust your exposure. Next, you also have the ability to put in LUTs or bake in LUTs into the FX3, which is dope. But again, I still feel like it should really give this camera a lot more monitoring tools to monitor what you're doing, especially with your exposure, especially if you're new to CineIL. Like if you're coming from base like regular ISO, the standard way of doing it, to CineIL, trust me, there's gonna be a learning curve. So I do feel they should actually introduce a lot more monitoring options for the FX3, so you can make sure you're nailing exposure every time. And then the last feature that kind of, I guess, essentially caught my eye was a huge update for the FX3, which again, the Netflix certification, again, if the a7S III had time code and CineIL, this would be a Netflix approved camera. So just nonetheless, they have time code now. Now for me, this is kind of confusing, because at first I was sitting here thinking like, well, doesn't, you know, the Sony cameras kind of have like this pre-time code thing in it, so it couldn't have already done time code. But nonetheless, you're gonna have to buy extra cable to implement time code properly on the FX3. And I'm also curious if that same cable work on the a7S III. Might have to test that out. But nonetheless, the FX3 update is dope. I just feel like if you're gonna make it a straight counterpart or a camera B to the FX6, which is camera A, you should have gave it an exact feature so you can match it up correctly, so you don't kind of have like any issues when you're doing recording. So if you shot in DCI and 24p on an FX6, you should be able to do the exact same thing on your B cam. That's the whole point of it being a B cam. But back to the video. Also, before I forget, as y'all watching this video, man, because I see like a lot of y'all be watching, hit subscribe, please like the video, share the video, and also follow me on IG. Like, boom, just a little quick break, bow, back to the video. Now, let's go into when you should invest into a cinema camera. But first, before we even discuss that, we need to discuss what are some of the perks and benefits that a cinema camera has that you may want to invest in, depending on what your job needs are. So, have them listed down here. Usually with a cinema camera comes like, you know, certain IO, right? Which is time code, SDI, built-in NDs, longer record times, which is usually like bigger batteries, better ergonomics, which is usually set for people who are gonna be holding the camera for long periods of time, which may be like a better handle, top handle, side handle, you name it. Video assist tools such as waveforms, false color, things of that nature. But if you have a monitor, you have that. So moving along. And last but not least, better audio. But I have a K3M adapter, so I kinda, you see where I'm going with this, right? So now that you know what are some of the perks of owning a cinema camera, let's discuss when you probably should invest into one, or if you even need to invest into a cinema camera. Now keep in mind, all the perks that I just named of cinema cameras, you could actually buy and start to kind of build out your camera to have those certain features when you are like in the need for them, right? So I'll link the video in the top somewhere along here, but I actually turned my A7S III into a cinema camera that fits my needs. So if you can find a cinema camera, or you can build a cinema camera like that grows as your skill set grows, to me that would be the most optimal way. But let's discuss when you should actually invest into a cinema camera, or if you need one now. Number one, are you working with bigger crews that requires you to have time code or SDI where you need to pull focus? Do you have like a lot of manual focus lens? Do you have like a nucleus nano where you actually need somebody to pull focus? Do you have an extra monitor for this person to do that on? Are you finding yourself working with crews that require you to have certain IOs to be successful in that job? If the answer is no, then you do not need to invest into a cinema camera right now. Next, are your clients asking you specifically for like that particular camera, right? So are you having your clients, most of your clients you work with, are they saying like, hey, we need this shoot to have a red camera, we need this shoot to have an FX9, an FX6, a C300? Are your clients asking you specifically for these cameras, or are you booking your clients with the current equipment that you have now?
By the way, like me talking to y'all is me essentially talking to myself. I don't want to buy a cinema camera, and I'm consistently trying to talk myself out of buying a cinema camera. So I figure if I talk to y'all about it, I could talk myself out of buying one.
How much are you making per job, right? So here's my rule of thumb. So I have two rules of thumb technically, right? Get it? Two rules of, because you have two thumbs. Number one, before you even buy any of the equipment or a cinema camera, if you will, you should have at least 3 months saved up of like essentially your personal expenses. So if you can, if you got essentially 3 months worth of rent, car note, food, or gas, lights, and all that, if you had that saved up and you still have enough money to buy a cinema camera, you like, yo, fuck you talking about, I want me a cinema camera? Do what you do. But are your clients paying you enough for you to actually afford that cinema camera? So essentially for me, a client should pay me the cost. Like that one job should pay me what I want, essentially, right? So if I want an A7S III, I should be booking clients that are paying me upwards of like $3,000 per job, you know what I'm saying, per project, which, I make more than that per project. It depends on the project, but nonetheless, like that's usually what my average is, right? My average is around an A7S III, FX3 type of project. So are you booking clients where you're like per job, you're making $6,000, $6,500, $7,500? Like, are you booking clients at a rate like that for it to actually make sense for you to buy a cinema camera? Or are you needing to save from 3-4 jobs to actually go buy this camera? That's a huge point that you need to ask yourself. And last but not least, when it comes to buying cinema cameras, are you prepared for the overhead with that, right? So let's say we take the Red Komodo, for example. From what I've researched, the Red Komodo shooting ProRes is like not too good when it comes to like skin tones. Like it starts to break up a little bit, which is crazy because like it's ProRes, right? So most people when they buy a Red Komodo or Red Camera period, they're usually shooting in like that red format, which takes up a lot of storage. So are you prepared to, number one, can your computer even handle these red files? If not, then you gotta invest to another computer, right? Number two, do you have the storage to manage all of these huge files now? Because now you gotta sit there and buy more SD cards, or not SD cards, you gotta buy like bigger hard drives, you have to buy, hard drives with the Red camera. Now you probably got to invest into like some type of cloud sync system where you can sit there and upload all your footage. Like, are you prepared for the overhead when it comes to owning a cinema camera? Do you have better audio equipment? So if you buy like a C300, right? Do you have a nice enough mic that would take advantage of you using like the new XLR ports that you have on your camera? You know what I mean? Like, these are things and questions that you should be asking yourself before you even consider buying a cinema camera, because if not, there's no reason to buy one. I'm gonna be real with you now. Like, and in today's society and kind of that's where we are with content creation, most of our stuff is being filmed on like IG or for TikTok, right? Yo, they don't even upload in 4K. So like, what are we missing here? Like, you having this Red camera to use for TikToks and IG Reels? Stop it. Are you shooting like cinema? Are you shooting like a lot of films? And if so, if you are, again, are they going to the big screen? Are they having you request these things where you kind of need this particular format? But I'm gonna tell you right now, even if you do own those cameras, that doesn't mean that all of your projects are gonna be just like off the table, just phenomenally good now. You still have to work on key things such as storytelling, lighting, audio, sound design, all of these things are what makes a great film. A cinema camera does not make a great film just by being a cinema camera. There are things that cinema cameras offer you as far as like having the right tool for the right job, but as far as picture quality, all of these cameras that are coming out right now, man, like you got a camera that you just shoot this good high quality 4K 10-bit footage, you are more than capable of shooting documentaries, social media work, stuff for professional clients, stuff for like Pepsi, the Obama Foundation, like, and I was shooting stuff with the Obama Foundation, I think when I had a Fuji X-T4 and a GH5. You know what I mean? So I didn't have a cinema camera when I was directing videos for them. I had those two mirrorless bodies in it and it got the job done. So before you go out there and spending your hard-earned money on cinema cameras because some YouTuber has sold you to and they just sitting here really hyping this stuff up, you have to really ask yourself, for the type of work that I'm doing now and for what my clients are paying for, are my clients asking for this? Can I afford the overhead? And is this tool gonna make my job any easier than what I'm doing currently right now? And again, don't forget, you could just build you out a cinema camera as you go in progression to your career. So if you find yourself like, you know what, man, I wish there was a better way for me to monitor my exposure. I need a bigger screen. You can buy a monitor. Now you got false color and you have waveforms built into that monitor. You know what? I actually want to see my LUTs now baked into my profile before I actually shoot something, okay? Again, you can buy a monitor. A monitor solves like a good 30-40% of what the cinema camera is offering, to be honest. And then if you have a Sony camera or a Panasonic camera, you can buy the adapter to give yourself professional 24-bit audio with 2 to 4 channels. I guess in a nutshell, I'm saying all to say that I don't really think you need a cinema camera. I mean, you know, again, depending on what you're doing, you know, I just, based off everything I just broke down and the logic behind it, what are the real benefits? It's your boy Sean B, man. I'm out. Deuces.